My name is Kenya Matthews. I'm 32 years old and I'm a criminal defense attorney. 3 days ago, my twin sister walked into my law office covered in bruises so severe I barely recognized her. When she told me her husband did this, I made a decision that would change both our lives forever. I swapped places with her, and I made damn sure he would never forget it. You see, when your identical twin shows up, bleeding and broken, begging you not to call the police because she's too scared, something inside you just snaps. I've spent 10 years putting criminals behind bars. Never did I think I'd have to become one to save my own sister, but here we are, and I'd do it all over again. If this story resonates with you, hit that like button right now. Subscribe so you never miss stories like this, and comment below what city are you watching from. I want to know how far this message reaches. Now let me tell you exactly how I taught that monster a lesson. I need you to understand something about me and my sister. We're not just twins. We're identical. Same face, same voice, same mannerisms. Growing up, even our parents couldn't tell us apart sometimes. We used to switch places in school, fool our teachers, play pranks on our friends. It was all fun and games back then, innocent. We were inseparable, two halves of the same soul. That's what our mama used to say. But life has a way of pulling people apart, doesn't it? After college, I went to law school. Keisha became an elementary school teacher. I moved to the city, working 80-hour weeks at a law firm, clawing my way up to partner. She stayed in our hometown teaching second graders how to read. I was chasing success. She was chasing, I don't know, peace, maybe normally a family. And that's when she met Marcus Johnson. God, I should have seen it coming. I should have paid more attention. But I was too busy building my career, taking depositions, winning cases, making a name for myself. I missed the warning signs. I missed everything. Marcus seemed perfect at first. Pharmaceutical sales representative, good job, decent money, charming as hell, the kind of man who opens doors and pulls out chairs and says all the right things. At their wedding, he gave this speech about how Keisha was the best thing that ever happened to him, how he'd spend his whole life making her happy. I remember looking at my sister in her white dress, glowing with hope, and thinking, she deserves this. She deserves to be loved like this. I was a damn fool. The distance between us grew after the wedding. At first, I thought it was natural. She had a husband now, then a baby, my niece Aaliyah. I had cases stacking up, clients demanding my attention. We went from talking every day to once a week, then once a month, then just holidays and birthdays. And every time I saw her, she seemed smaller, quieter, like someone was slowly turning down her volume, dimming her light. I told myself I was imagining things. I told myself marriage changes people. Motherhood changes people. I told myself a lot of lies because the truth was too horrifying to face. My twin sister, my other half, was being destroyed right in front of me, and I was too blind to see it until 3 days ago. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I remember, because Tuesdays are my light days, just paperwork, no court appearances. I was in my office reviewing case files, sipping cold coffee when my secretary buzzed in. Her voice had this edge to it, this concern. "Miss Matthews, your sister is here, but Kenya, she doesn't look good." My heart dropped before I even saw her. I told my secretary to send her in and to hold all my calls. The door opened and I looked up, and I swear to God, for a second, I didn't recognize the woman standing there. She was wearing sunglasses, indoors in my office with no windows facing the sun, long sleeves despite it being 85 degrees outside, a turtleneck in the middle of summer, and she was limping, favoring her left side like every step sent pain shooting through her body. Keisha. I stood up, my attorney brain already clicking into overdrive, cataloging details, building a case before I even knew what the case was. "What's wrong? What happened?" She didn't answer, just stood there trembling. I walked around my desk, closed the distance between us, and locked my office door. Privacy. Whatever was about to happen needed privacy. "Take off the sunglasses," I said. My voice came out harder than I intended, but I was scared, terrified, actually, because I already knew. Somewhere deep in my gut, I already knew. She shook her head, tears streaming down her cheeks. And that's when I saw them, the bruises on her neck, finger-shaped, 4 on one side, 1 on the other. Someone had choked my sister. Someone had put their hands around her throat and squeezed. I reached up and pulled the sunglasses off her face myself. And what I saw, Jesus Christ, what I saw will haunt me for the rest of my life. Her left eye was swollen shut, the skin around it a deep purple black. Her lip was split, still crusty with dried blood. There was a gash on her cheekbone that should have had stitches but didn't. And her eyes, the one that could still open it, was dead. Empty, like someone had reached inside her and scooped out everything that made her caw, and left behind just a shell. Who did this? I asked. But I already knew the answer. There's only one person who gets that close, who has that kind of access, who can hurt you where no one else can see. Kenya, please. Her voice was a whisper, broken and hoarse arrow. Please don't call the police. Please, he'll kill me. He said, if I ever told anyone, he'd kill me. Roll up your sleeves. I wasn't asking. I was telling using my courtroom voice, the one that makes witnesses confess and defendants crack. She hesitated, and that hesitation told me everything I needed to know. But I needed to see. I needed the full picture. So I reached out and pushed up her sleeves myself. And oh God, the map of hell that was revealed. Bruises everywhere. Old yellow ones fading into new purple ones. Belt marks across her forearms where she'd tried to protect herself. Circular burn marks, cigarette burns dotting her skin like some sick constellation. Defensive wounds on her hands where she tried to block punches. And on her wrists, rope burns. He'd tied her up. That son of a had tied up my sister. I felt something inside me break. No, not break. Shatter. Explode. A rage so pure and hot. It burned through every professional boundary I'd ever built, every ethical line I'd ever drawn. This wasn't just a client. This wasn't just a case. This was my sister, my twin, the other half of my soul. How long? I managed to ask through clenched teeth. 3 years. She said it so quietly I almost didn't hear. It started about 6 months after we got married. 3 years. 3 years of this hell, and I hadn't known, hadn't seen, hadn't been there. Tell me everything, I said from the beginning, every detail. I need to know what we're dealing with. And so she told me, God, the things she told me, it started small. She said, control disguised as care. Marcus wanted to know where she was all the time, who she was talking to, what she was doing. He said it was because he loved her so much. Couldn't stand the thought of anything happening to her. He started criticizing her clothes too tight, too revealing, making her look like she wanted attention from other men. So she started dressing more conservatively. Then, it was her friends. He didn't like them, said they were bad influences, said they were trying to break up their marriage, so she stopped seeing them. Then it was me. He said I made Keisha feel bad about her life, that I was always showing off my success, making her feel small. That wasn't true. That was never true. But she believed him, or at least she was too exhausted to fight. So the calls stopped, the visits stopped. He isolated her completely. And I let it happen because I was too busy with my own life to notice. The first time he hit her was on a Thursday night. She remembered the day because it was garbage day, and she'd forgotten to put the bins out. Such a small thing. But Marcus came home drunk. He'd been drinking more and more, and he saw the bins still by the garage, and something in him just snapped. He grabbed her by the hair, dragged her outside, and slammed her face into the garbage bin, told her if she was going to act like trash, she could be with the trash. She said she was in shock, couldn't believe it had happened. He apologized the next morning, brought her flowers, cried, swore it would never happen again. And like an idiot, her word, not mine, she believed him. But it did happen again and again and again. Every time he lost money gambling, and he gambled constantly, blowing entire paychecks on sports betting, he came home and took it out on her. Every time he had a bad day at work, she paid for it. Every time his mother called and complained about something, Keisha became the punching bag. And speaking of his mother, Jesus Christ, that woman, Diane Johnson, she moved in with him a year into the marriage, and that's when things got exponentially worse. Because Diane didn't just enable her son's violence, she participated in it. Keisha told me about the psychological torture, how Diane would criticize everything she did. Her cooking was too salty or too bland. Her cleaning wasn't good enough. Her parenting was too soft. Her clothes were too nice for someone who contributed nothing to the household. Never mind that Keisha was working full-time as a teacher and taking care of a toddler. Diane acted like Keisha was some kind of freeloader. And then there was Tamika, Marcus' sister. She'd gotten divorced and moved back home, by which I mean she moved into Marcus and Keisha's house. Rentrée, contribution-free, just taking up space and adding to the abuse. Tamika treated Keisha like a servant, demanded that Keisha cook for her, clean for her, do her laundry, and if Keisha ever pushed back, ever said no, Tamika would run crying to Marcus. And Marcus would make Keisha pay for disrespecting his family. So it wasn't just one abuser, it was three. A whole system of abuse working in concert to break my sister down piece by piece. But the thing that made me see red, the thing that pushed me over the edge was what she told me about Aaliyah. My niece, 5 years old, bright-eyed, sweet, innocent. And she was watching all of this, witnessing her father beat her mother, learning that this was normal, that this was love. He hit her, Keisha said, and her voice cracked completely. Last night, Aaliyah was crying because she was scared, and Marcus told her to shut up, and when she couldn't stop crying, he slapped her across the face. Kenya, she's 5 years old. 5. And I tried to stop him, I tried to protect her, and he grabbed me by the throat and choked me until I couldn't breathe. He slammed my head against the kitchen counter over and over, and Diane and Tamika just stood there watching. And then they joined in. Tama scratched me with a comb, and Diane shoved dirty dish rags in my mouth to shut me up. I couldn't breathe. I literally could not breathe. My vision went red, and my hands started shaking, and I had to sit down before I fell down. I can't do this anymore, Kenya, Keisha whispered. I can't. I've tried to leave before, but he always finds me. He always brings me back. He said if I ever try to take Aaliyah away from him, he'll kill me, and I believe him. I know he'll do it. So I don't know what to do. I came here because I don't know where else to go. I looked at my sister, my identical twin, my other half, and I saw what 3 years of systematic abuse had done. It had taken this vibrant, joyful, loving woman and turned her into a ghost, a shell, someone who was just waiting to die. And that's when I said the words that would change everything. You won't have to do this anymore. Give me 3 days. Just 3 days of your life, and I promise you, he'll never touch you again. She looked at me like I was crazy. What are you talking about? We're gonna switch places, I said. My mind was already working, already building the plan. You and me, we are identical. No one can tell us apart. You're gonna stay here at my apartment safe, and I'm gonna go be you for 3 days. I'm gonna walk into that house as Keisha, and I'm gonna make Marcus Johnson regret every single thing he's ever done to you. Kenya, no. You don't understand. He's dangerous. He'll hurt you, I smiled. And it wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile I give opposing counsel right before I destroy their case. Let him try. You have to understand, I'm not Keisha. I look like her, sound like her, but I'm fundamentally different. Keisha is gentle, soft, kind. She became a teacher because she wants to help children, nurture them, build them up. She's never thrown a punch in her life. Me? I'm a criminal defense attorney. I've spent a decade in courtrooms facing down prosecutors, judges, hostile witnesses. I've represented rapists, murderers, drug dealers, not because I think they're innocent, but because everyone deserves a defense. I've learned to be hard, cold, strategic. And outside of work, I box. 3 times a week, I'm in the ring, hitting bags, sparring, training. I know how to take a punch. More importantly, I know how to throw one. So when I walked into that house on Wednesday evening, when I used Keisha's keys to unlock the door and step into that suburban prison, I wasn't scared. I was ready. I was a loaded gun waiting to go off. The house looked normal from the outside. Nice neighborhood, manicured lawn, 2-car garage, but the inside, God, the inside felt like a tomb. Dark, suffocating. The air itself felt heavy with violence and fear. I barely closed the door when I heard her. Diane's voice, sharp and demanding. cutting through the house like a knife. "Keisha, is that you? Where have you been all day?" "You know Marcus comes home at 6 o'clock and dinner isn't even started." I took a deep breath and channeled my sister, made myself smaller, hunched my shoulders, lowered my eyes, walked into the kitchen where Diane was sitting at the table, a stack of magazines in front of her, a glass of wine in her hand. This woman had been living in my sister's house for 2 years, contributing nothing, and had the audacity to complain about dinner not being ready. "I'm sorry," I said, using Keisha's soft voice. "I'll start it now." "You better," Diane said, not even looking up from her magazine. "And make something good this time. Last night's chicken was dry." I opened the refrigerator, cataloging everything I saw. Evidence. Always building evidence. I pulled out ingredients and started cooking. And that's when Tamika sauntered in. She was exactly what I'd pictured. Overweight, badly dyed blonde hair, an expression of perpetual contempt on her face. "Oh good. You're finally home," she said, collapsing onto the living room couch. "Bring me a soda and some chips. I'm starving." I brought her a soda, and as I handed it to her, I studied her face, memorizing every feature, every expression, thinking about all the ways I was going to make her pay. Then Aaliyah came downstairs. My heart broke all over again, seeing her. She looked so much like Keisha had as a child. Big brown eyes, curly hair, a smile that could light up a room. Except she wasn't smiling. She crept down the stairs like a mouse, trying not to make noise, trying not to be noticed. "Mommy," she whispered when she saw me. I knelt down and opened my arms, and she ran into them, and I held my niece for the first time in months, feeling her little body trembling against mine. And I made a silent promise right then and there. This ends now. No child should live in fear. Not in her own home. Not ever. At 8 o'clock, I heard the garage door open. Marcus was home. My entire body tensed. Every muscle coiled, ready. I was about to come face to face with the man who had spent 3 years terrorizing my sister, the man who had put his hands around her throat, the man who had slapped a 5-year-old child. The door slammed open. He was already drunk. I could smell it from across the room. Bourbon and anger, a nauseating combination. "Keisha," he shouted. "Where's my dinner?" He was tall. I'll give him that. About 6'2", probably 200 lb. Handsome, in that generic way. Pharmaceutical sales reps tend to be. Good hair, good teeth, good suit. The kind of man who charms doctors and nurses into prescribing his company's drugs. The kind of man who knows how to hide who he really is. But I could see him, the real him, the monster underneath the suit. "It's ready," I said quietly, setting his plate on the table. I'd made steak, mashed potatoes, green beans, and I deliberately underseasoned everything. Not enough to be obvious, but enough to be noticeable. He sat down, didn't say thank you, didn't acknowledge anyone else at the table, just picked up his fork and knife and cut into the steak, took a bite, and his face changed. "What the hell is this?" He spit the food back onto his plate. "This tastes like cardboard. Can't you do anything right?" Diane chimed in immediately, like she'd been waiting for her cue. "I've been telling you, Marcus. She can't cook. She can't clean. I don't know what you see in her." Tamika laughed from the couch. "Girl can't do nothing but make babies." Marcus stood up, and that's when I saw it, the violence simmering just beneath the surface. He approached me where I stood by the stove, and his body language was all predator. He was used to Keisha cowering, backing away, apologizing, begging. I didn't move, didn't flinch, just looked him straight in the eye. "I work all damn day," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "I put food on this table, clothes on your back, a roof over your head, and this is what you give me. Garbage?" He raised his hand. I'd been waiting for this. 3 years of Keisha's reports had prepared me. He always led with a slap, an open-handed strike meant to humiliate as much as hurt. His palm came toward my face, and I caught his wrist midair. The shock on his face was beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. He was a big man used to overpowering a woman 30 pounds lighter than him. But I work out, I train, I box. And more than that, I was fueled by 3 years of rage. I squeezed his wrist. Not enough to break it, but enough to hurt. Enough to let him know that something had changed. That the woman he thought he knew wasn't who he thought she was. "Not tonight, Marcus," I said, my voice still soft, but with an edge he'd never heard from Keisha before. "I've had a long day too." He tried to pull his wrist free. Couldn't. His face flushed, red embarrassment and anger, mixing into something dangerous. He used his other hand to try to pry my fingers off, but I held firm for another 3 seconds, just long enough to make my point before releasing him. Marcus stumbled back, cradling his wrist, looking at me like I'd just grown a second head. Diane gasped, "Keisha, how dare you put your hands on my son?" Tamika sat up straight on the couch. "Girl, you done lost your damn mind." But Marcus just stood there breathing hard, staring at me. And I could see the calculation in his eyes. He was trying to figure out what had changed, how to reassert control. He was used to winning, used to dominating, and I'd just shown him that the game had changed. "Dinner's getting cold," I said calmly. "Y'all should eat." Then I walked away, left them standing there confused and angry. And for the first time in 3 years, uncertain, I went upstairs and put Aliyah to bed. Read her a story, The Paper Bag Princess, about a princess who saves herself and doesn't need the prince. Seemed appropriate. She fell asleep, holding my hand, and I sat there for a long time just watching her breathe, thinking about all the nights she'd gone to sleep, listening to her mother being beaten. Never again. Never again. Around 11 o'clock, I heard footsteps outside the bedroom door. 2 sets, Diane and Tamika, coming to put me in my place. I'd been expecting this. Abusers hate losing control. And I just challenged the entire family hierarchy. They had to respond. I stepped out into the hallway, pulling the door closed behind me so Aliyah wouldn't wake up. The 2 women were waiting for me, arms crossed, faces hard. "We need to talk," Diane said. "About what?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. "About your attitude," Tamika said. "About your little stunt downstairs. You think you can embarrass Marcus like that in his own house?" "The house that's in my name," I said quietly. "Let's not forget that detail." Diane's face went red. "That house was bought with my son's money." "Actually," I said, and now I let a little bit of my attorney voice come through. "The down payment came from my parents. The deed is in my name. Legally, this is my house. You and your daughter are guests. Guests who don't pay rent, don't contribute to utilities, and don't help with household expenses." The 2 women looked at each other, shocked. Keisha had never talked like this, never knew these things, never stood up for herself. "But I wasn't, Keisha. I don't know what's gotten into you," Diane said, stepping closer. "But this attitude stops now." Tamika moved to my other side, flanking me. "Yeah, Marcus is too soft on you. Somebody needs to teach you some respect." She shoved me. Not hard, but enough to make a point. Enough to establish physical dominance. In the past, Keisha would have stumbled, apologized, backed down. I didn't move. Didn't even rock back on my heels. Just stood there solid as a wall and stared at Tamika. "Don't touch me again," I said. "Or, what?" She shoved me again, harder this time. I still didn't move. And I could see the confusion in her eyes, the fear starting to creep in. "Let me explain something to both of you," I said, and my voice was ice cold now. "I've documented every bruise, every injury, every instance of abuse over the past 3 years. I have photographs, medical records, witness statements from neighbors who've heard the screaming, and all of that constitutes felony domestic violence." Diane opened her mouth to interrupt, but I kept talking. "You 2 are accessories to felony assault. You've participated in the abuse. You've encouraged it. You physically attacked me yourselves. That's conspiracy. In this state, that carries a sentence of 5 to 10 years. Both women had gone pale. "So here's how this is going to work," I continued. "You're going to go back to your rooms. You're not going to touch me. You're not going to threaten me. And tomorrow, we're all going to have a very serious conversation about the future of this household. Are we clear?" Diane found her voice. You can't prove any of that." I smiled. "I'm a lawyer, Diane. Proving things is literally what I do for a living." I turned and walked back into Aliyah's room, closing the door behind me, leaving them standing in the hallway, stunned into silence. That was confrontation number one. I'd established that the old power dynamic was broken, that Keisha wasn't going to take it anymore. But I knew it wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Marcus wouldn't let this stand. His ego, his pride, his need for control, all of it had been challenged. He would retaliate. The only question was when and how. I got my answer the next morning. I'd woken up early, made breakfast for Aaliyah, got her ready for school. Diane and Tamika were avoiding me, staying in their rooms, whispering to each other. Marcus had slept on the couch, too drunk and too confused to deal with anything the night before. But when I came back from dropping Aaliyah at school, he was waiting for me, sober, angry, determined. "We need to talk," he said, in the bedroom now. I followed him upstairs, closed the door, and waited. He turned on me immediately, grabbing my arm with that same grip that had left bruises on Keisha for years. His fingers dug into my flesh hard enough to hurt, hard enough to leave marks. "I don't know what's gotten into you," he said, his face inches from mine. "But it stops now. Today, right now. You're my wife. You do what I say. You show me respect. You know your place," Marcus hissed, gripping my arm so tightly it burned. "You're hurting me, Marcus," I said calmly. "Good," he snarled, squeezing harder. "Maybe you'll remember this. Maybe you'll think twice before embarrassing me again." I didn't fight him, didn't resist, just let him dig his fingers deeper, creating fresh bruises over Keisha's old ones, because every second was being recorded. The hidden camera I'd installed in the bedroom the day before was catching everything, and the audio recorder in my pocket captured every word. Evidence. Always evidence. "You think you can just change?" he barked, voice rising. "Think you can grow a spine? You're nothing without me. Nothing. You were nothing when I met you. A nobody teacher making pennies and raising a kid alone. I gave you everything." "Is that what you tell yourself?" I asked quietly. His hand rose, fist clenched, ready to strike. That's when I moved. After being still and passive long enough to let him feel in control, I shifted my weight, deflected his arm, and used his momentum against him. One quick sweep, and Marcus Johnson, 6 feet 2 inches, 200 pounds, crashed to the floor. I stood over him and said, "Don't ever try that again," then walked out, leaving him stunned and furious. The moment he realized he couldn't control me physically, he did what all abusers do. He picked up the phone and called the police. An hour later, 2 officers arrived, one older veteran, one young rookie. Marcus put on a dramatic show, claiming I'd attacked him, that I'd gone crazy, that he feared for his safety. I met them calmly at the door with a folder in hand. "Officers, my husband called because I defended myself when he tried to hit me. Before you take his statement, I'd like you to see something." Inside the folder were 3 years of medical records, ER visits for supposed accidents, photos of bruises, cuts, black eyes, broken ribs, a fractured wrist, cigarette burns. The older officer's expression hardened. He'd seen this pattern before. "Ma'am," he asked gently, "how long has this been going on?" 3 years, I said. "He beats me, chokes me, threatens to kill me if I leave. And this morning, when I finally stood up to him, he tried to hit me again. So I pushed him away. That's when he called you." I showed them the video from that morning. Marcus grabbing me, threatening me, pulling back to punch. The rookie looked sick. The veteran looked furious. Turning to Marcus, he said coldly, "Based on this evidence, you're lucky we're not arresting you right now. Ma'am, do you want to press charges?" I shook my head. "Not yet. I just want him to understand that someone is watching, and if he touches me again, there will be consequences." The officer faced Marcus, now pale and trembling. "We'll be filing a report. We'll be watching this address. If we get called back for anything, you will be arrested. Do you understand?" Marcus nodded silently, humiliated and enraged. The police left, and in that moment, he realized the truth. He couldn't use force, and he couldn't use the law. He had lost control. He was running out of options, but his family wasn't done trying. That evening, Tamika made her move. She'd called her boyfriend, a guy named Dre, 6 feet 4, 250, all muscle. The plan was obvious. Dre would intimidate me, maybe rough me up a bit, remind me of my place. Tamika left us alone in the living room. Dre approached me with that swaggering confidence of a man who's never been challenged by a woman. "So I hear you've been giving my boy Marcus problems," he said. "Have I?" I stayed calm, measuring distances, watching his body language. "Yeah. And see, I don't like when women disrespect good men. Marcus, he's a good dude. Takes care of his family. And you out here acting up, causing drama. That ain't right." He reached for me and I moved. One quick sidestep, grabbed his arm, used his forward momentum and my hip as a fulcrum. Basic judo throw, the kind I'd practiced 1,000 times. Dre went flying. All 250 pounds of him crashed through the coffee table, landing in a heap of broken wood and shattered glass. He looked up at me from the floor, shock and pain written all over his face. "That's assault," I said calmly. "In front of cameras, multiple cameras, actually. They're all over this house, hidden, recording everything. So if you want to try again, go ahead. I'll have you arrested for home invasion and assault. That's 5 to 7 years." Dre scrambled up and ran out of the house like his pants were on fire. Tamika screamed at me, called me crazy, called me a demon. I just smiled and told her she should probably start looking for a new place to live. Marcus and Diane had witnessed the whole thing, and I could see it in their eyes. The fear was setting in. This wasn't Keisha. This was someone else, something else. And they didn't know how to handle it. That night, I overheard them plotting. The hidden cameras and audio recorders I'd placed throughout the house picked up everything. They were in Diane's room, all 3 of them, whispering like conspirators. "We can't let this continue," Diane said. "This woman is destroying our family." "What do we do?" Marcus asked. "We can't touch her. We can't call the cops. We can't intimidate her. We need to get rid of her," Tamika said. There was a long silence. "Not like that," Diane said quickly. "But we need to remove her from the picture. Make her go away." "How?" Marcus asked. "Sleeping pills," Diane said. "We crush them up, put them in her coffee tomorrow morning. Once she's out, we call mental health services. Tell them she's had a breakdown, that she's become violent and unstable. They'll take her away, probably put her in a psych ward for evaluation. And while she's gone, Marcus, you file for divorce and sole custody of Aaliyah." My blood ran cold listening to this, not because I was afraid, but because they were planning to drug me, to have me institutionalized, to take my niece away from her mother. These people had no limits, no boundaries, no conscience. Fine, neither did I. The next morning, I watched Diane prepare my coffee, watched her crush 3 sleeping pills and stir them into my cup, watched her put on a fake smile and bring it to me. "Here, baby," she said sweetly. "You look tired. This will help." I took the cup, brought it to my lips, pretended to drink. Then, when no one was looking, I poured it into a nearby plant. I sat on the couch pretending to get drowsy, let my head nod forward, closed my eyes, slowed my breathing. "It's working," Tamika whispered. "Call the ambulance," Marcus said. "Wait," Diane said. "Make sure she's really out." I kept my breathing steady, slow, deep. Let them think they'd won. Diane approached, shook my shoulder. Keisha, can you hear me?" I didn't respond, stayed limp and unresponsive. "She's out," Diane said triumphantly. "Call them now." That's when I opened my eyes and sat up. The 3 of them jumped back like I'd risen from the dead. "I didn't drink it," I said calmly. "I watched you crush the pills, Diane. I watched you stir them in, and I've recorded all of it. Attempted poisoning. That's a Class B felony. 20 years minimum." Diane's face went from triumph to terror in half a second. "I also recorded your little planning session last night," I continued. "Conspiracy to commit forcible medical detention. Filing false reports with mental health services. Conspiracy to commit forcible medical detention. Filing false reports with mental health services. Conspiracy to commit fraud. Attempting to unlawfully institutionalize someone. Do you want me to keep going? Because I can. I'm a lawyer. I know exactly what crimes you've committed." All 3 of them stood there frozen. The walls were closing in on them, and they knew it. "Here's what's going to happen now," I said, standing up and walking to my bag. I pulled out a folder, Thick, organized, tabs, color-coded. We're going to have a conversation about the future. All of you are going to sit down at that table, and you're going to listen very carefully. They didn't have a choice anymore. I opened the folder and spread the contents across the table. Medical reports, photographs, video footage burned onto DVDs, audio recordings on USB drives, bank statements showing Marcus, gambling debts, documentation of every crime, every assault, every threat, every act of abuse committed in this house over the past 3 years. This, I said, gesturing to the pile of evidence, is what I've built. This is 3 years of documentation. 3 years of your crimes, and yesterday, and today, I added more video of Marcus assaulting me, video of you, Diane, attempting to poison me, audio of all 3 of you conspiring to have me forcibly institutionalized. Marcus, hands were shaking. Who are you? I smiled. I'm Keisha's twin sister, Kenya Matthews, criminal defense attorney, and I've spent the last 3 days documenting every single crime you've committed against my sister. The color drained from all 3 of their faces. You tricked us, Tamika whispered. I did, I said, and every bit of evidence I collected is admissible in court. Every recording was made in a home that belongs to Keisha. Every video was captured on property she owns. It's all legal. All of it. Diane started crying, actual tears running down her face. You can't do this. You can't destroy our family. Your family? I laughed, and there was no humor in it. You destroyed your own family when you decided to torture a woman for 3 years. When you beat her, choked her, burned her with cigarettes. When you slapped a 5-year-old child across the face for crying. I pulled out another set of documents. Divorce papers already filled out, just missing Marcus's signature. Here's how this is gonna go. I said, you have 2 choices, just 2. Choice number 1, I take all of this evidence to the district attorney's office on Monday morning. I file a criminal complaint. I press charges for domestic violence, assault, battery, attempted poisoning, conspiracy, child abuse, and about a dozen other crimes. Between the 3 of you, you're looking at 40 to 60 years combined in prison. All 3 of them were crying. Now, Marcus, the big tough guy who loved to beat up women, was sobbing like a child. Or, I continued, choice number 2. You sign these divorce papers right now. You agree to full custody of Aaliyah going to Keisha with no visitation rights for Marcus. You pay child support of $3,000 a month until Aaliyah turns 18. That's 13 years, so $378,000 total. The house stays with Keisha, it's in her name anyway. Marcus, you and your mother and sister have 24 hours to move out, and I file a restraining order for all 3 of you. 500 feet minimum distance at all times. We don't have that kind of money, Marcus said. I smiled. Yes, you do. I've seen your bank statements, Marcus. You've got about $40,000 in your 401k. Your mother has a settlement from your father's workplace death. $900,000 hidden in a jar in the shed, wrapped in plastic. Diane gasped. How did you? I'm thorough, I said. You'll liquidate assets. You'll take out loans. I don't care how you get the money, but you'll get it because the alternative is prison. And trust me, prison is much, much worse. I let that sink in for a moment, watched them process their options, watched them realize they had no leverage, no power, no way out, except the one I was offering. You have until 5 o'clock today to decide, I said. If you choose option 2, Marcus signs these papers, and we go to the bank together to set up the payment schedule. If you choose option 1, or if you don't choose at all, I make a phone call and you're all in handcuffs by dinner time. I gathered up my evidence and put it back in my bag. I'm gonna pick up Aaliyah from school now. When I get back, I want your decision. I left them sitting at that table. 3 people who had spent years terrorizing others, now completely powerless and terrified. The drive to Aaliyah's school felt surreal. I'd done it. I'd broken them. In 3 days, I'd systematically dismantled an entire structure of abuse. But I wasn't done yet. The final confrontation was still coming. I picked up my niece and brought her to my apartment, my real apartment, where Keisha was waiting. The reunion between mother and daughter was everything I'd hoped it would be. Tears and hugs and kisses and laughter. Aaliyah kept touching her mother's face like she couldn't quite believe she was real. Mommy, you look different, Aaliyah said. You look happy. I am happy, baby, Keisha said, crying and smiling at the same time. I'm so happy. We let Aaliyah watch cartoons while Keisha and I talked in the kitchen. It's almost over, I told her. By tonight, you'll be free. Legally, officially free. Kenya, what did you do? She asked. Everything necessary, I said. Nothing more, nothing less. At 4:30, my phone rang. It was Marcus. We'll sign, he said, his voice hollow. We'll do whatever you want. Just don't send us to prison. I'll be there in 30 minutes, I said, and hung up. Keisha rode with me back to the house. It was time for the final act. Time for Marcus to see what he'd lost. Time for him to understand the full scope of his failure. We walked in together, me and Keisha, identical twins, side by side. The looks on their faces when they saw both of us was priceless. Confusion, horror, the dawning realization that they'd been played from the very beginning. Hello, Marcus, Keisha said softly, surprised. Marcus's mouth opened and closed like a fish. But you, how? My sister saved me, Keisha said. She did what I couldn't do. She fought back, and now you're going to give me my life back. I spread the divorce papers on the table. Sign here and initial here. Marcus picked up the pen with a shaking hand. He looked at the papers, at the terms, at the life he was about to lose. And then he looked at me. I could kill you for this, he said. I leaned in close. Try it. Please try it. Give me a reason to skip the civil route and go straight to criminal charges. I'm begging you. He signed the papers. Every page, every line, every initial. His hand shook the entire time, but he signed. Diane was next. She had to sign an agreement to vacate the premises, to surrender any claim to the house, to stay away from Keisha and Aaliyah. She looked at me with pure hatred as she signed. You're evil. You're a devil. No, I said, I'm justice. There's a difference. Thomas signed her agreement without a word. She was done fighting, done pretending, just wanted to escape with whatever dignity she had left. When all the papers were signed, I gathered them up and put them in my bag. Legal, binding, enforceable. You have until tomorrow at 5 p.m. to be out of this house, I said. Take your belongings. Nothing that belongs to Keisha or Aaliyah. I'll be here with a sheriff's deputy to supervise. If you're not out by then, you'll be removed by force. Marcus stood up. He was a big man. And for a moment, I thought he might try something. Might try one last act of violence. I was ready for it, hoping for it even. But he just stood there broken and defeated. Who are you? He asked again. What kind of person does this? The kind who loves her sister, I said. The kind who protects her family. The kind who doesn't let monsters win. I took Keisha's hand. Come on, let's go home. We walked out of that house together, leaving Marcus and his family behind, leaving 3 years of hell behind, walking toward freedom. The next day, I was there at 5 o'clock sharp with a sheriff's deputy. The house was empty. They'd taken their things and disappeared, probably to Diane's sister's place across town. Good. The farther away, the better. I changed all the locks, installed a proper security system, set up cameras, visible ones this time, not hidden, made sure Keisha and Aaliyah would be safe. Over the next few weeks, I watched my sister transform. She started smiling again. Really smiling, not the forced, frightened smile I'd seen for years. She laughed. She played with Aaliyah. She went back to teaching and actually enjoyed it. Aaliyah changed too. The fear left her eyes. She stopped flinching at loud noises. She made friends at school. She drew pictures of her and her mommy. And in every picture, they were both smiling. Marcus tried to fight the custody arrangement. Of course he did. Men like him always do. But I represented Keisha in family court, and I brought every piece of evidence I'd collected. The judge took one look at the medical records, the photographs, the videos of Marcus assaulting Keisha MI, and terminated his parental rights on the spot. No visitation, no contact, nothing. The child support payments came through monthly. Marcus had to sell his car, cash out his retirement, take out loans. Good. Let him struggle. Let him know what it's like to have nothing. Diane filed for bankruptcy after having to liquidate her hidden savings. Tama moved in with her ex-husband, which I'm sure is its own special hell. The three of them are scattered now, broken, no longer a united force of abuse. And Keisha, she's thriving. 6 months later, she met someone new, a good man, a teacher like her, someone gentle and kind who treats her like she deserves to be treated. I vetted him thoroughly, of course. Ran a background check, did a deep dive into his history. He's clean, he's good, they're taking it slow. Keisha's not ready to rush into anything. Maybe she'll never be ready for marriage again, and that's okay. She doesn't need a man to complete her. She's complete on her own. But watching her open herself up to the possibility of love again, of trust again, that's the real victory. Not the divorce papers, not the restraining orders, not Marcus, broken spirit. The real victory is seeing my sister remember who she was before he tried to destroy her. People ask me if I regret it. If I regret crossing ethical lines, impersonating my sister, entrapping Marcus and his family, if I regret becoming essentially a vigilante. And my answer is simple. No, not for 1 second. Because here's what people don't understand about domestic violence. The system isn't built to protect victims. It's built to protect abusers. Victims have to jump through 1,000 hoops to prove they're being hurt. They have to document everything, photograph everything, report everything. And even then, even with mountains of evidence, abusers walk free more often than not. The average woman tries to leave 7 times before she succeeds. 7 times. And 1 in 4 women who do leave end up being killed by their abuser within the first 2 years of separation. The system failed my sister for 3 years. So I became the system. I became her protection. I became her justice. Was it legal? Most of it, yes. I was very careful about that. The impersonation was ethically gray, but not technically illegal. Keisha gave me permission to be in her home, to use her identity in that context. The recordings were all legal because they were made in her home with her consent. The evidence I collected was admissible. Was it right? Absolutely, without question. Because at the end of the day, what's more important? Following every technical rule of legal ethics? Or saving a woman's life? Protecting a child from growing up in a house of violence? I know what some of you are thinking. You're thinking, I went too far. That I should have just called the police, filed a report, worked through the proper channels. Let me tell you what happens when you work through the proper channels. The police come, they take a report. Maybe they arrest the abuser, maybe they don't. If they do, he's out on bail within hours. He comes home angry. And the victim pays the price for calling 911. Restraining orders? They're just pieces of paper. They don't stop bullets. They don't stop fists. They don't stop a man who's determined to hurt you. The family court system, it's a joke. Abusers lie. They manipulate. They charm judges and social workers. They paint their victims as crazy, as vindictive, as the real problem. And more often than not, they get joint custody. They get visitation. They get continued access to the people they've been terrorizing. So no, I don't regret stepping outside the system. I don't regret taking justice into my own hands. Because if I hadn't, my sister would still be in that house, still being beaten, still living in fear, and Aaliyah would be growing up thinking that violence is love, that abuse is normal. I broke that cycle. In 3 days, I broke a cycle that could have continued for generations. Do you know what Aaliyah told me last week? We were at the park, just the 3 of us, me, Keisha, and Aaliyah. We were sitting on a bench eating ice cream, watching kids play, and Aaliyah looked up at me with those big brown eyes and said, "Aunt Kenya, thank you for saving my mommy." I asked her what she meant, and she said, "I used to be scared all the time. Scared of daddy, scared of grandma, scared to make noise, scared to be happy. But I'm not scared anymore. Mommy's not sad anymore. And it's because of you. That's why I did it." For moments like that, for a 5-year-old who can finally be a child without fear, I want to talk to everyone watching this who might be in a situation like my sister was. Maybe you're being hurt by someone you love. Maybe you're trapped in a relationship that's slowly killing you. Maybe you've tried to leave and been pulled back. Maybe you're watching this right now with your abuser in the next room, hoping they don't notice you're listening to something that might give you ideas. Listen to me very carefully. You deserve better. You deserve safety. You deserve peace. You deserve a life without fear. I know it seems impossible. I know he's told you 1,000 times that you'll never make it without him, that no one else would want you, that you're nothing, that you're crazy, that it's all your fault. I know he's isolated you from your friends and family. I know he's controlled your money, your phone, your every move. I know he's threatened to kill you if you leave. I know he's promised to take your children. I know he said he'll hurt your family if you tell anyone. I know all of this because it's the same playbook every abuser uses. They're not creative, they're not original, they all follow the same pattern. Isolate, control, abuse, threaten, repeat. But here's what they don't want you to know. You can escape, you can survive, you can build a new life. It won't be easy. It will be the hardest thing you've ever done. You'll need help from family, friends, domestic violence organizations, legal aid attorneys. You'll need to plan carefully. You'll need to document everything. You'll need to be strategic and patient. But it's possible. I've seen it. I've lived it through my sister. If you don't have a sister like me to swap places with you, that's okay. You can be your own hero. Start small. Document everything. Take photos of every bruise, every broken item, every threatening text. Email them to a trusted friend, or store them in a cloud account he doesn't know about. Build your evidence. Reach out to domestic violence organizations. They have resources, shelter beds, legal advocates, safety planning experts. They can help you create an escape plan that minimizes risk. Talk to a lawyer. Many will do free consultations for domestic violence cases. Find out your rights. Find out what evidence you need for a restraining order, for custody, for divorce. Save money if you can, even small amounts, even dollars at a time. Hide it somewhere safe. Build your escape fund. And when you're ready, when you have your plan in place, when you have your support system ready, leave. And don't look back. I'm not gonna lie to you. The statistics are scary. The most dangerous time for a domestic violence victim is right after they leave. That's when abusers escalate. That's when they become most violent. But staying is more dangerous. Staying is a death sentence, just a slower one. My sister stayed for 3 years. 3 years of escalating violence. If she'd stayed any longer, Marcus would have killed her. I know it. She knows it. The only question was when, not if, so she left. And yes, it was dangerous. And yes, Marcus tried to retaliate. But she survived. She's thriving now. And you can too. For those of you watching this who aren't in an abusive relationship, I have a different message. Pay attention. Look for the signs. Your sister, your daughter, your friend, your coworker, they might be suffering in silence. They might be wearing long sleeves in summer, canceling plans at the last minute, losing weight, seeming anxious or depressed, making excuses for their partner's behavior. Don't ignore the signs. Don't tell yourself it's none of your business. Don't assume they'll ask for help if they need it. Ask them directly. Find a private moment and say, "Are you safe? Is he hurting you?" Give them space to tell the truth. Believe them when they do. Don't judge them for staying. Don't tell them what they should do. Just offer support and resources. And if you're in a position to help more directly, like I was, if you have legal expertise or financial resources or physical strength, use it. Use your privilege to protect people who can't protect themselves. The system is broken. It fails victims every single day. So we have to be the safety net. We have to be the ones who catch people when they fall. We have to be willing to step outside our comfort zones, to take risks, to fight battles that aren't technically ours. Because domestic violence isn't just a private family matter. It's not just between a husband and wife, a boyfriend and girlfriend. It's a social problem. It's everyone's problem. And it's going to take all of us working together to solve it. I used to think the law was enough. That if we just enforced existing laws better, if we just prosecuted more cases, if we just handed out longer sentences, we could end domestic violence. But I've learned that the law is just a tool. And like any tool, it only works if someone uses it. Victims can't always use it themselves. They're too scared, too controlled, too broken. So sometimes someone else has to pick up that tool and wield it on their behalf. That's what I did for my sister. I picked up the law and used it like a weapon against her abusers. And I'd do it again. I'd do it for anyone who needed it. 3 days. That's all it took to dismantle 3 years of abuse. 3 days of strategic planning, careful documentation, and calculated confrontations. 3 days of being someone I'm not, or maybe someone I've always been, but never had to be before. Marcus Johnson is broken now. His life is in shambles. His reputation is destroyed. His family is scattered. His money is gone. And every month when he has to write that child support check, he's reminded of what he lost. Not because I took it from him, because he threw it away. He had a good woman, a beautiful daughter, a comfortable life, and he destroyed all of it with his fists and his rage and his need for control. I don't feel sorry for him. Not even a little bit. He made his choices. Now he's living with the consequences. Diane learned that enabling abuse makes you just as guilty as the abuser. She lost her son, her granddaughter, her home, her savings. She's alone now, and she has no one to blame but herself. Tamika learned that being a bully has consequences. She lost her free ride, her support system, her family. She's back with her ex-husband, probably making his life hell, continuing the cycle of dysfunction. And Keisha learned that she's stronger than she ever thought possible, that she deserves love and respect and safety, that she doesn't have to accept abuse just because someone calls it love. Aaliyah learned that women don't have to be victims, that standing up to bullies is possible, that her mother is a survivor and her aunt is a fighter, and she comes from a line of strong women who don't back down. And me, I learned that sometimes being good means breaking rules, that justice and legality aren't always the same thing, that the most important battles are the ones we fight for, the people we love. I'm Kenya Matthews. I'm 32 years old. I'm a criminal defense attorney who spent 3 days impersonating my twin sister to save her from her abusive husband. And I'd do it all over again in a heartbeat. If this story moved you, if it made you angry or sad or hopeful or determined, hit that like button. Let me know this message reached you. Subscribe to this channel for more real stories about real people surviving real horrors and coming out the other side. And comment below. Tell me where you're watching from. Tell me if you've survived something like this. Tell me if you know someone who needs to hear this story. Let's build a community of survivors and supporters, and people who refuse to stay silent when others are being hurt. Because silence is what abusers count on. Silence is what lets them continue. Silence is what kills. So, let's make some noise. Let's talk about domestic violence. Let's talk about the failures of the system. Let's talk about creative solutions and unconventional justice and the power of love to overcome evil. My sister is free now. She's safe. She's happy. She's healing. And that's worth every rule I bent, every line I crossed, every risk I took. Thank you for listening. Thank you for caring.